The evolutionary history of life on Earth is vital to learn about in order to fully appreciate the wonderful life that surrounds us today, and thinking about how an organism evolved over time is absolutely fascinating and a key component of the science of paleontology. But what about thinking of the future evolution of an organism, or an alternative evolution? This is a topic known as speculative zoology or speculative evolution, and it's actually a fairly common and sometimes quite mainstream exercise. When taken as a serious investigation of a hypothetical evolution, speculative zoology can be quite an informative process, encouraging people to think about the evolutionary mechanisms, the selection pressures that may apply, and the nature of macroevolution in general, but also it's just a lot of fun. One of the most iconic instances in the history of speculative zoology was the case of the Dinosauroid, a truly bizarre hypothetical reconstruction of what might have happened if non-bird dinosaurs had evolved human-level intelligence. Now, I've actually featured the Dinosauroid before in my first episode of my series on speculative zoology, but it's just so much fun to talk about, and there's actually a lot more detail and later developments that it ties into that I didn't really include in that original video, which I thought would be interesting to discuss further here. So here we go then. What if non-bird dinosaurs had evolved human-like intelligence? Meet the Dinosauroid. In the 1970s, before even the dinosaur revolution had properly started in the field of paleontology, when people realised that these creatures had not been the slow, cumbersome swamp dwellers of decades past, but were in fact active, sometimes fast-moving animals, a great deal of research was focusing on the brain sizes and relative intelligence of various dinosaurs. A fascinating group of dinosaurs that were quickly realised to have had relatively very large brains for their body size were the troodontids, although back then they were called sauroornithoids, with the name changing due to taxonomical updates. Troodontids were remarkable among non-bird dinosaurs for having encephalization quotients, which is a way of comparing the brain size to body mass ratio between different species, that put them on par with certain living birds and mammals, with the examples given being emus or opossums. However, as noted by paleontologist Darren Naish in his excellent articles on the history of the Dinosauroid, the research and discussion around this time of big-brained smart dinosaurs seems to have resulted in the misconception that some of these extinct animals were very, very smart, like primate-level smart. And since they were already approaching this level of intelligence, given a few more million years of evolution, it was pretty much inevitable that troodontids would have been as smart as certain primates, including humans. A few works from the later 70s, including sci-fi stories, seem to play with the idea of the evolution of superintelligent dinosaurs a bit, but it was then in 1982 that the famous Dinosauroid itself was born. Paleontologist Dale Russell, who we sadly lost not that long ago, was at that time the curator of vertebrate fossils at the Canadian Museum of Nature. Russell had worked on troodontids before, writing papers about various aspects of their paleobiology, but then in 1982, in a publication called Reconstruction of the Small Cretaceous Theropod Stenonychosaurus inequalis and a Hypothetical Dinosauroid, he introduced the world to his concept of what could have happened if non-bird dinosaurs did not go extinct at the end of the Cretaceous, and instead kept evolving to reach human-level intelligence. Working with a model maker and taxidermist named Ron Seguin, Russell produced life-sized models of both the troodontid Stenonychosaurus and his hypothetical Dinosauroid, bringing to life his idea of dinosaurian superintelligence and damning children around the world, including myself, to endless nightmares about this creepy reptile man and his lifeless staring eyes. The overall appearance of the Dinosauroid is very striking and, frankly, quite disturbing when you're a young child coming across it for the first time in your favourite dinosaur book. But what are the concepts behind its design? Well, in the paper, Russell actually gave justifications for each of his choices, and they're very interesting to read. Firstly, why the bipedal upright posture? Well, it was argued that the larger brain and head size of the Dinosauroid would cause a horizontal body to become unbalanced, and therefore a shift to an upright pose would allow the extra weight to be supported on a vertical neck in a much more energetically efficient way. The shape of the actual skull and head were largely based on the proportions of a chick embryo, and the reason for a very foreshortened face is said to be because the facial region gets smaller in relative size as the endocranial volume increases. Additionally, the Dinosauroid is entirely toothless, instead possessing a turtle-like beak, due to troodontids already having relatively reduced dentition compared to dromaeosaurs, the logic being that if they'd kept evolving they would have lost them completely. The nostrils were also raised up from their position in its Stenonychosaurus ancestor so that a secondary palate, like those known from ornithomimids, could be included, and the size of the orbits and eyes were kept the same, the reasoning being that dinosaurs are generally known to have had large eyes anyway. The Dinosauroid also possesses a very hominid-like hip structure, with a pelvic canal said to be suited to giving live birth to young that had very well developed brains, and the inclusion of a navel is another indication of its apparent bearing of live young. The proportions of the legs were also based entirely on humans, the assumption being that this must be the perfect form of hind limb for walking upright, and there's even a crest of bone on the tibia that acts to replace the function of the kneecap, which most reptiles do not have, as an insertion point for muscles of the lower leg. The feet are also very human-like and are plantigrade, or flat-footed, instead of being digitigrade and walking on the toes, like the theropods it's derived from. The structure of the toes was actually based on the plantigrade tree kangaroo Dendrolagus, which was said to resemble the toes of Stenonychosaurus in other respects, and the lack of a raptorial or predatory condition in these structures was argued to be because advanced tool use would eliminate the need for armament on the body, citing the loss of enlarged canines in our own evolution. The shoulders of the Dinosauroid are also very prominent and hominid-like, and reasoned to be like this due to it being a construction suited to coordinated projectile throwing. The humerus, radius and ulnar proportions are then also said to be similar to those in ornithomimids, as well as hominids, and the hand still retains the 3 digits of Stenonychosaurus. The 3rd digit is in the position of the thumb and therefore opposable, and the fingers all end in flattened claws. Notably, a tail is also absent in the model, with only a stump visible, presumably a result of the upright stance, and no external genitalia can be seen, instead being enclosed within a cloaca. Additionally, the absence of any feathers is just a result of the time in which the concept was made, as later discoveries show that troodontids would have possessed feathering. It's an incredibly well-made model, and the justifications for its appearance are fascinating, but the response from the paleontological community at the time was a mixed one, and today the Dinosauroid is not exactly considered to be a very good or serious idea of what superintelligent dinosaurs would really have looked like. The main criticisms of the design are that it's just way too human-looking. Despite Russell employing a lot of comparative anatomy and using a few other animals as well, it's very clear that it's essentially just a reptilian humanoid. This seems to indicate a lot of bias in the mind of the author, which, to be fair, he does freely admit in the publication, but it demonstrates a belief that the human body shape is just the best for allowing intelligence to evolve, and that such a form is simply inevitable to convergently evolve one way or another, and that's very problematic. Why would a completely unrelated animal gradually evolve to look more and more human the closer it got to human level intelligence? Sure, there are the reasons given in the paper about balancing a larger head, but an elongated tail would surely act to counterbalance a greater weight at the front of the body anyway. Just because humans are currently the only known instance of this level of intelligence does not mean that all instances of it must evolve in the same way we have. There's no need for all these drastic changes in the ancestral body plan to occur, and an intelligent theropod dinosaur is going to look much more like other members of its lineage than to our own species, especially since the reason we look the way we do is a result of our very specific evolutionary history and our position as primates. And further, there is certainly no indication that there's a goal in evolution, and that a certain body plan or feature such as great intelligence is destined to evolve eventually. This seems to be the way most paleontologists think about the Dinosauroid today, but it was still a very valuable and interesting project that inspired a lot of discussion and thoughtful debate, despite the backlash that Russell faced from others. The Dinosauroid has actually had a remarkable impact on our popular culture and inspired a great deal of other intelligent dinosaur designs too, showing up in museums around the world as well as in books and even TV shows. The actual Dinosauroid and Stenonychosaurus model created by Russell and Seguin are, as far as I know, still kept at the Canadian Museum of Nature where Russell was based, at least as of 2005 according to an article from Paleoblog. Interestingly though, it turns out that Russell had planned to feature a section on the Dinosauroid again in his 1989 book An Odyssey in Time, The Dinosaurs of North America, but it was scrapped from the final version at the last minute, possibly, some think, after the original design had been criticised by other paleontologists. However, an incredible piece of art by legendary paleoartist Ely Kish had actually been commissioned for this book, showing a group of prehistoric dinosauroids in a cave as if painted by modern day dinosauroids, but sadly it was believed that this painting had never been made public. That is, until a photo from the collections of the museum was shared on Twitter by paleontologist Jordan Mallon of Kish's Dinosauroid art, and I must say it's absolutely beautiful and I'd love to see it properly published one day. Fortunately, the models created by Kish and used as the basis for her painting are also still kept in the museum storage, images of which have also been shared online. Even before Russell's planned inclusion of the Dinosauroid in his book though, it made another appearance in David Norman's 1985 book, The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Dinosaurs. Here, it was actually talked about pretty favourably and illustrated by another iconic paleoartist, John Sibbick, though as has been noted, some of the exact anatomical features have been changed from the original. The Dinosauroid appeared in a lot of dinosaur books throughout the 80s and 90s, often presented as a fairly serious idea of a potential alternate evolutionary history, and I myself have a distinct memory of coming across it in a DK book, though unfortunately I don't remember which one. I also seem to remember there being a sticker of it that I stupidly put somewhere in my bedroom and would terrify me at night when I looked at it. If anyone happens to know which book I'm thinking of and would like to help me relive my childhood nightmares, please do let me know in the comments. Anyway, the Dinosauroid actually made an appearance in the 1991 TV series Dinosaur, hosted by Walter Cronkite, at the end of the last episode where an alternate history in which dinosaurs recolonized the world after humans went extinct is considered, and features a Dinosauroid version of Cronkite himself hosting the news. Interestingly, in this version of the Dinosauroid lore, they are actually derived from avian dinosaurs, birds, that survived the human extinction, which, as unlikely as the original Dinosauroid concept is, seems even more ridiculous. But it's not exactly treated as the most serious of ideas, and it's just funny to watch. The design of these Dinosauroids is also quite different to the original, being much more colourful and almost cartoonish, as well as more obviously reptilian with snake-like scales on the front, and to me at least they don't seem quite so creepy. The creation of the suits used in the show is also documented in the accompanying book written by David Norman, unsurprisingly called Dinosaur. In 2007, a BBC Horizon episode then aired in which the Dinosauroid featured prominently, with more people in suits bringing the creation to life in live action. This episode imagines a world in which Dinosauroids and humans actually evolved together and have even eventually learned to cooperate, with a certain paleontologist named Simon Conway Morris, who I don't mean to sound unkind to as he's contributed in so many incredibly important ways to the field, explaining how intelligent hominid-looking dinosaurs were pretty much an inevitability had non-avians survived. It's difficult to ignore the fact that Conway Morris is very openly in favour of evolution having an end goal, and certain body plans that are apparently the best, which is linked to his religious views, but that's all I'll say about that. Multiple other paleontologists also appear in the episode and make the same criticisms of the Dinosauroid design that I mentioned earlier, as well as pointing out the arrogance of assuming that the end point of all evolution should be something that emulates the human shape. As well as the Dinosauroid suits and illustrations, other models of our favourite scaly boy have been produced as well. I only know of at least 2 others, but I'm sure there must be more out there in museums. Please do let me know if you've ever come across a wild Dinosauroid yourself. I know there's definitely one on display at the Dinosaur Museum in Dorchester, England, which was possibly made by Dougal Dixon, a paleontologist also well known for the iconic speculative zoology project After Man, as well as another Dinosauroid, also in Dorset as it happens, at the Dinosaurland Fossil Museum in Lyme Regis. This particular model was another of my earliest encounters with the Dinosauroid concept, and I remember it also freaking me out as a child visiting the museum, and revisiting in early 2020, having forgotten this was here, it definitely brought back some disturbing memories. I'm not sure who made this model or the history behind it at all, but again, if anyone does know, please do leave a comment. It's also interesting to see the clear inspiration Russell's Dinosauroid has had on other interpretations of super-intelligent dinosaurs. There are actually a surprising number of these that have been in various places over the years, some of which I also mentioned in my History of Speculative Zoology series. One that I didn't mention before though is the Bioperapter, a name given by paleontologist Darren Naish for an intelligent dinosaur created by John C. McLaughlin in an article published in the magazine Animal Kingdom in 1984, actually only a couple of years after the original Dinosauroid was made. As has been noted by others online, Bioperapter is humanoid in some respects but also looks much more like an actual dinosaur than Russell's concept, still retaining a tail and having a body shape much more like a theropod. The lore of Bioperapter comes to an end when they destroy themselves in a nuclear war that triggered the KPG extinction, and it's also said that they had devastating effects on the Cretaceous ecosystems by domesticating and herding cattle-like herbivores such as ceratopsians. In 1993, a very odd-sounding book called Who Lies Sleeping? The Dinosaur Heritage and the Extinction of Man by Mike McGee argues that intelligent dinosaurs definitely did exist for real and caused the end Cretaceous mass extinction in a similar way to the current human-caused extinction. Yes, it sounds like a very interesting read. Another instance of intelligent dinosaurs that I found recently was featured in a 1997 episode of the show Ultraman Tiga, a series about the Japanese superhero Ultraman. In this episode, an alien race uses dinosaur DNA to create their own intelligent dinosauroids who they then send to Earth to pilot a pair of giant cyborg Tarbosaurus in order to wipe out humanity. I've never seen it before, but it sounds brilliant, and the designs of the Dinosauroids are very clearly based on Russell's concept, even down to the coloration they use. In possibly one of the weirdest coincidences ever, intelligent dinosaurs were featured on TV a second time in 1997, in an excellent episode of one of my favourite shows of all time, Star Trek Voyager. This episode is about a species of intelligent dinosaur descended from hadrosaurs of all things, explaining that this species, called the Voth, derived from a kind of hadrosaur that realised the KPG extinction was about to happen and managed to build starships to escape the Earth before they were wiped out. Travelling for millions of years, they eventually reached the other side of the galaxy, the Delta Quadrant, and began creating a civilization based on massive city ships, eventually forgetting their true origins on Earth. The episode itself is great and deliberately parallels the trial of Galileo as Voth scientists try to uncover the truth of their distant origin, and the designs, although again annoyingly human-like in overall shape, look incredible and are highly detailed. It's an interesting choice to go with hadrosaurs as the ancestors though, considering they don't have as high of an encephalization quotient compared to some theropod dinosaurs, although studies on the cranial endocasts of the Hadrosaurid Amorosaurus have shown that compared to sauropods, ceratopsians, and most living non-bird reptiles, it actually had a relatively large brain for its body size. So good job, Star Trek, actually not the worst dinosaur lineage to choose. There's also yet another TV show that featured super intelligent dinosaurs too, the 2007 series Dinosapien, which I actually distinctly remember watching as a kid and being a huge fan of. This show was based in modern-day Alberta and featured an intelligent dromaeosaur called Eno, who's being chased down by a pair of presumably ankylosaurian bipedal dinosaurs known as the Diggers, who all seem to have come from an underground world of late surviving non-avian dinosaurs. Eno's design is humanoid looking in some ways, but definitely nowhere near as bad as the Dinosauroid, still very clearly being of dromaeosaur ancestry and, impressively, actually incorporating some feathery integument, although he's still mostly scaly. Another example of intelligent, potentially Dinosauroid-inspired dinosaurs in fiction that I've come across are featured in the second book of the Time Riders series by Alex Scarrow. Day of the Predator includes a super intelligent unknown dinosaur species that hunts down a group of humans stuck in late Cretaceous North America, and are described as highly social pack hunting animals capable of mimicking the vocalizations of their prey, including the humans. The dinosaurs are described as being very thin, almost skeletal in their appearance, and the skull shape is compared to that of the xenomorphs from Alien. Presumably of troodontid or dromaeosaur descent, it's another very interesting variety of dinosauroid and actually a really terrifying one in the way they're described slowly hunting down the humans one by one throughout the novel. It's definitely a brilliant read. There are probably more examples of such dinosauroid-based creations in various media that I haven't mentioned here. Again, comment below if there are any more you can think of, but those are a few notable and personally relevant examples. But so far, none of the designs we've looked at have been totally realistic or scientifically grounded. Sure, some are much better and more plausible than others, but what about an up-to-date, modern interpretation of a scientifically acceptable intelligent dinosaur? What would such an animal look like? Well, several people have attempted to answer this. Most notably is paleoartist C.M. Kozman's Avisapiens Saurothios, first created in 2006. This is a wonderful interpretation of an intelligent dinosaur and is very clearly not humanoid in shape at all, instead being of obvious theropod heritage. It's also fully feathered, which is nice to see, and uses its beak as its primary manipulator of tools and other objects, though the hands are also employed too. It's actually largely inspired by modern-day ground hornbills, which have been suggested by paleontologist Darren Naish to be a much better analogy for a super-intelligent dinosaur than humans are, especially as their evolutionary history seems to parallel our own in some ways. Along with artist Simon Roy, Kozman actually later further expanded on the lore of the Avisapiens, creating a whole world of animals these dinosauroids lived alongside, including other races of intelligent dinosaurs as well as mammals and other non-intelligent dinosaurs. They even went as far as exploring what their artwork, hunting, culture, and religious ideas might have been like. Loads of illustrations and explanations of the whole thing can be seen on Kozman's website. It's absolutely brilliant, I'd highly recommend going and checking it out. Another more realistic dinosauroid was created by artist Met Almala in 2017, known as Paranthropoharpax naishi. Almala considers the ancestors of Paranthropoharpax to have been mostly herbivorous, possessing hard keratin-covered jaws which were retained in this more carnivorous descendant, and the loss of feathers on the hand and replacement of the primaries with short spurs is also noted. These dinosauroids are said to be capable of tool use and also hunting groups, working together to dispatch larger prey items. I'm sure there must be many more speculative dinosauroid projects out there on the internet that I haven't covered here, so again, do leave a comment if you know of any more, or have indeed created your own dinosauroid. I'd love to see more of this idea. Well then, there we go. The Dinosauroid has had a significant impact on the world of paleontology and indeed even popular culture as a whole, and its legacy continues even today. Although not treated as a realistic or serious take on intelligent dinosaurs anymore, Russell's Dinosauroid certainly encouraged a lot of discussion about how smart these organisms really were, and how their hypothetical future evolution may have occurred, in turn encouraging discussions about their evolutionary history, which, in the end, is certainly a positive outcome. Hopefully we'll see more of the scientifically based Dinosauroid speculative world-building projects like the one mentioned in this video. That'll be great fun to see. And no matter what you think about the original Dinosauroid design, it can't be denied this is certainly an important, if bizarre, part of the history of paleontology. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters too, especially our Dinosaur tier supporters Amanda von Nordek, Archianthus, Bella Anderson, George Fodgetek, Greg Silvernail, Ironhead, Just F Max, Corey Peterson, Laura Sanborn, Mayor's World, Mike Pace, Persian Boy, Staniforth Hopkins, and Tiffany Trammell. If you would like to find out more about our world, its history, and the wonderful life that surrounds us all, please feel free to subscribe to the channel if you think we deserve it, and if you would like to see more from us.